and this is the video where I talk about the anti-TBR tag. Hello and welcome. I'm not sure if I'm gonna regret this. I mean, it kind of seems very, very bland. I've looked at my list and it seems very typical, to be honest. It's I don't know if it's that it's just not controversial, or I mean, to me, like, personally it might be. I don't know. Yeah, so it's a tag created by Nicole and her books. I am personally very excited by this. I've seen a couple of the videos that people have made, including Nicole's, of course. And yeah, it's so interesting to talk about, to listen to people talk about the books they won't read and why. I don't usually get, I don't know. I don't think I'm the type of person that gets offended when people say, there have been moments. It depends on how people talk about them. If it's like a book that's very, very close to my heart, I would be upset if they're just like, it's terrible. But if people are just like, yeah, no, it's not for me, I don't like these things, I'm not gonna start hating them for not liking the book that I like. The only thing that I can think of that I'd immediately start disliking people for if they said they don't like Percy Jackson. But that's besides the point of why we're here. So I've got the questions up on my phone. I've got my answers written down. Let's see how this goes. So I'm gonna pop the questions down below as well. So if you wanna have a look at them, because I'm not going to be putting them up on the screen, but if you want to have a look at them while I'm speaking, they're down there. I'll also be linking Nicole's original video down in the comments below. So the first question is, a popular book everyone loves that you have no interest in reading. This one, okay, so I'm not too sure on all of the books that everyone loves. I did disappear from book Twitter for a little bit, so I wasn't too, I'm not too up to date with what everyone has been reading. But there's one book that did come to mind like straight away though, but it's kind of old news. I don't know how, yeah. So the book is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I don't know why. It just doesn't interest me. I've probably read the blurbs a few times and just not been interested. I've heard that it's got buy rep, but I'm still not interested. I think it might just be the genre mixed with the subject matter, and then me knowing that it's epistolary formatting. I'm not too keen on epistolary novels. There have been a couple exceptions. I was reminded that The Perks of Being a Wallflower is written in letters. I can't think of many others that I have read and liked. I've read like a part of Dracula, but I was reminded that that's also epistolary. I just don't like letter writing. I don't know why. I just kind of find it dull. Is Evelyn Hugo epistolary? I don't know. Is it the interview one? Is that Daisy and the Six? I don't know. Just from what I've heard, the formatting isn't for me. Or is it interview style? I don't know. It's just, as much as my brain does like experimental formats, I don't think that translates into novels as well. So like with poems, epistolary, fine. Makes sense for me for poems to be in a letter format, especially when sometimes poems are written to a person. Anyway, I don't know why. It's the first one that came to mind. I don't know. I'm just gonna move on now. I'm now like really doubting myself that it's epistolary, because I don't think it is. I think it's interview format, but still, that's not enough to intrigue me. The second question is a classic book or author you don't have an interest in reading. My brain didn't want to work today. I've been trying to think about books since the moment I woke up, and my brain just doesn't want to put two and two together of matching a book to a prompt, and I don't know why. But I had to do a little search. I went on Goodreads, I went and looked at the classic list that has a list of classic books. Nicole said that Catcher in the Rye for her, that book is the answer for her, which I'll agree with, because I've read, for uni we had to read the first chapter or something of it, and there was a girl in my class that was just like, yes, I love this book, I love Holden, just was so enthused by the fact that we had this chapter to read, and she just really loved the book and the character, and that's fine. But like then when I tried to read it, I was so annoyed. This character, Holden, is the most annoying character I think I've ever encountered. Firstly, from the top of my head, because this was years ago, what I can remember is this character's obnoxious as hell. Clearly very privileged, sounds very white, sounds very male. That is not gonna cut it for me. Firstly, I barely read books written by men to begin with, but then to have a character that's very in the privilege of being a white man just didn't sit well with me. Excuse me, I just, but as I was going through the list on Goodreads, another book did jump out at me, and yeah, I don't think I'm ever gonna read it, and it's Les Mis. I don't even know if I'm ever gonna watch the movie. Les Mis. That's not even the full title, and I don't even know who it's by. Wait, yes I do, it's Victor Hugo. Is it? Yeah. It's like this big, if not bigger. I can't even sit through a short Jane Austen book. What do you, how am I ever gonna sit through a chunky, translated from French, classic novel? And I might be semi-interested in the French Revolution, but still even, Moving on. So this is kind of like a two-parter question. Can be answered separately, can be answered together. So it's an author, number 3, an author whose books you have no interest in reading, or a problematic author whose books you have no interest in reading. So for this one, Taylor Jenkins Reid came up for me. Anytime anyone talks about any of the books by Taylor Jenkins Reid, I've just not been interested. I don't know if it's because it's contemporary, or because it never seems to be in an ordinary format. I don't know. I don't know. I can't explain this one. It just, nothing of their books has stood out to me. Really, not one thing. Sorry. Another author that I didn't realize that I'd speak about, but makes sense that I would. George R.R. Martin, which is the author of the Game of Thrones series. I don't even think that's a proper series title, but I don't care. Game of Thrones is the title of the first book, isn't it? I don't care. I really don't. I really don't. And there's a question that comes up later that I think, yeah, links to me just having no interest in reading any of those books by George R.R. Martin. Just no thank you. Anytime we talked about him in any of the writing classes for my Bachelor of Arts, I was just like, thank you, next. No. No thank you. I do not like his methods. I do not like his style. I'm sorry, just no. I think I tried reading the first couple of sentences from Game of Thrones. I was incredibly bored, and that's just within a couple of sentences. That is not how you want to start a series. How, excuse me, don't know why my throat's doing that. No thank you. I think a word that I've used to describe him in the past has been arrogant. Self-conceited is another thing that I've called him. And honestly, I've not done the research on him to know if he truly is, but from the very small amount we talked about, well, it wasn't, yeah, he came up a bit. He came up a little bit in our classes. It's just what I've gathered from those classes. So the next question is question number 4. An author you have read a couple of books from and have decided their books are not for you. This one was a little hard to think of, and then suddenly I had 2 authors. So the first one is Vari McFarlane. What is their most popular book? I don't know. You Had Me at Hello is the first one I've read from them, and then the other one I've read from them is Don't You Forget About Me. Don't You Forget About Me, I liked. It wasn't terrible. You Had Me at Hello, I liked even less. So they're kind of dubbed as a romance writer, which is not completely incorrect, but from the 2 books that I've read from them, they are more, I think I've said this in another video maybe, or maybe it's in my wrap up that's from my, what is it, my July, August wrapped up. I think that I've talked about it there. Their books are more contemporary with elements of romance, or literary with romantic elements. So with literary fiction, you don't have any, whoa, my phone almost fell. With literary fiction, you kind of just don't have any other genre in it. You have threads of it, but it's not anything that's heavy genre-wise. So you can have elements of mystery and romance in a literary novel, but it's not a romance novel and it's not a mystery novel because there's not enough of those thematic elements to make it that genre. So with Vari McFarlane's books, it seems more literary with romance. There's enough romantic elements that it's not literary, and I think the genre that it would be classified as is chick lit, which I've said in that wrap up. I hate chick lit. It just seems so exclusionary because I think it's more of a marketing thing, but if you go to a library, there's like a full section of like chick lit, which pisses me off because it excludes a lot of people, to be honest, because it insinuates that it's only going to interest women in the conventional sense. No. Okay, let's try that again. Oh my god, my phone almost fell again, but I caught it. I caught it. Yeah, it kind of seems like it'll only ever interest middle-aged housewife women. That's what it sounds like to me. Some of the books that are listed in this genre aim for that to be their target audience, but it just excludes so many people that might enjoy this genre. I personally don't think I do. Or maybe I don't like Vari McFarlane's books because, oh, completely like her books, because it's mismarketed a lot of the times. Because when I went to go buy those books on my Kindle, it said romance books. And it doesn't have enough romance in it for me to be satisfied that it's a romance book. That's where all that was going. That was a very long tangent. I don't know if anything of value came out of that, but there we go. The other author that I said that I had is Maggie Stiefvater. And I probably have a friend who, I don't think she'll get mad at me for it. I've read this Shiva, what is it called? The Wolves of Mercy Falls series, which is Shivalinga Forever, and I think there's a novella of one of the side characters, which I might read. But the rest of her books, I don't think I'm gonna read. Which her most popular series is The Raven Boys. I don't know if it's because it just doesn't sound interesting to me, or if it's because my friend, it's one of her favorite series, so she talks about it a lot, which isn't a bad thing, but I've just heard so much of it that I don't find it necessary to read. It's happened a few times where I just know so much about a particular story that I just don't find it necessary to read. It's not that she's a terrible writer. I've heard that her series get better. It's just, I'm not interested. So, there we go. I feel like question number 4 went on forever. Question number 5 is a genre you have no interest in, or a genre you tried to get into or couldn't. Couldn't. Excuse me. I don't know. I usually only read YA contemporary, YA fantasy, sci-fi. What else do I read? Urban fantasy, I don't know, all of those ones, and all along those veins of similarities. Anyway, the genres that I don't really read are like horror, which probably horror I'll never ever read, maybe because it doesn't interest me. I'm not interested in being creeped out, but there are a couple of books that are considered horror that I want to read, like Wilder Girls. Is that by Rory Powers? If it's not, I'm gonna look like a tit. So I can't completely rule out horror, nor with thriller, because sometimes I've been interested in thriller books. So the one that I came to is crime novels. I don't know if I'm interested enough in crime novels to want to read them. I can't think of any crime novels that I've read or know of that I'm interested in reading. Yeah. Anyway. Question number 6 is a book you have bought but will never read. This can be a book you have read, you have unhauled or returned to the library unread. This is one of the ones I struggled with. I don't know. My thing is I buy books that I'm interested in, and always have the intention of reading it, and I don't know. I'm not a hype buyer, so it's not like I've bought books that I've been enthralled by because of the hype and then regretted it later. I don't think so. This is like a shelf that I've not read a lot of these books of, so maybe the Vampire Academy book. I've not read it, but I do want to get to it maybe. So the one that I came to is like my classics shelf. I've bought a lot of classic books and I've not read a lot of them. For school, I had to start reading Jane Eyre. I absolutely hated it for multiple reasons. One, creepy, not because it's a gothic, because she is young, a young woman, I believe, and in my mind, I don't remember his name, do not care for it. I wouldn't remember her name if it wasn't the title. In my head, he's just so old. Plus the fact that he is already married. I don't care that in the time period that it was written and that it's based in, that was the normal thing, a young woman with an old man. I do not care. It's gross. End of. Also, the writing style kills me. And it's 500 pages of what? Of what? How could it be so dramatic that it goes on for 500 pages, if not more? I don't remember how many pages exactly my copy has. I once remember Raya posting a picture saying I have 3 days or something to read like 500 pages. How is it that long? I've read not that many pages, but I just don't see how it could go on for so long. The other book that I thought of that could fit on this, in this question, but I technically didn't buy it, is what I was mentioning earlier about George R.R. Martin. I have Game of Thrones on my shelf down here. Not by choice. So for my 18th birthday, as we were packing up after the night had ended, my family was just like, Julia, we found this underneath the table, and it was a present that was still wrapped. It had no note. It was very strange. No one said anything about it. Like everyone was already gone, but like no one had said anything about needing to give me a present later, or they dropped a present somewhere for me. No note. And I asked like 1 or 2 people if it was from them. Anyway, so I own technically Game of Thrones. I'm not interested. I'm sorry, I'm not. It just seems so pretentious to me. Anyway, there are 2 more questions, and I've been going on for so long. The 7th question is, a series you have no interest in reading, or a series you started and have DNF'd. This one's a little hard for me because even though I've not finished all of the series that I've started to read, I always have the intention of finishing them. But then I remembered of one major one that I have decided not to continue on purpose, and it's the ACOTAR series. So A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. With how, what's it called? With how A Court of War and Ruin finished, and how the novella A Court in Frost and Starlight went. No thank you. No, that's enough. That's done. No thank you. Bye-bye. Not interested. Even before A Court of Frost and Starlight happened, I was iffy about the fact that this new series wasn't going to be about the main group or about Freya and Rhys. was pretty hung up on that fact because I didn't want to say goodbye to them. I regret that because Court and Frost and Starlight was a mess. I wish I didn't read it, actually. Yeah. Sarah J Maas was once my order by author. Not anymore. Not anymore. Just, yeah. Yep, I won't be reading on from that series. So that's technically DNFing a series. I don't know. The other series that I can think of that I have no interest in and won't be continuing is kind of a two-parter. It's Cassandra Clare's books. So I've read most of the Mortal Instruments. It's just on my shelves down here is why I'm pointing. I've not read City of Heavenly Fire. By the time that was released, my interest kind of was petering off. I was just losing interest at that stage to begin with, but I wanted the last book for the sake of having the last book, and I did have intentions of reading it. And then my friend that I mentioned earlier who likes Maggie Stiefvater also really likes Cassandra Clare. We've just talked so much about the last, how it ends, the series, how the series ends, and then the other series that I don't feel like I need to read them because she talks about it enough that I'm just not, I know I'm not interested. But also, even without that, I'm not, there are so many books a part of this one damn world. To me, I just get so bored. It's the same world. Like, I don't care if it's set in different time periods, it's still the same world. It's still the same bullshit happening over and over again, basically, in different series. I've also read The Infernal Devices, but those were good. It was only 3 books as well. So, the rest of this massive series, just, I'm done with it. Maybe read City of Heavenly Fire just for the sake of having said I've read it and technically finished off the series. But I'm learning a lot more about self-care around reading. And that being, do not read a book if it doesn't interest you. And City of Heavenly Fire doesn't really... And there's just so much from that series that I've forgotten that I would jump in not knowing what the hell was happening. And that's it. Well, okay, that's it for that question. The last question, which is probably going to be a major disappointment. The 8th question is, and the last question, a new release you have no interest in reading. I don't know what new releases are. Like, I'm so out of the loop of not knowing what's a new release. There are some that I know of. Technically, the ones that I knew of have already been released recently. And there's one book that I've pre-ordered, but I'm like super excited for. Any new release that I know of basically is something that I've been interested in. And then any other new release, I either don't know of, or just because it hasn't interested me, I've not remembered. I can't think of anything. I really can't. So yeah, there's that disappointing answer. But also, that's all the questions. Thank you for this little long rant. I don't even know. I barely even spoke about the books, I feel. I feel like I went on a few different tangents. The camera cut off at one point. I'm feeling very out of breath because I always do when I do videos for some reason. Yeah, right? Thank you for watching. It was very weird. Yeah, hope you have a lovely day and night. See you in the next one. Bye. Wait, I do this all the time. I wave with the wrong hand and then I talk while waving. Alright, bye.